begin, we are privileged and honored to have our next guest with us. As a teenager, Ann Allen Boyce was one of the Clinton 12, a group of Black students who integrated all-white Clinton, Tennessee High School in 1956, 2 years after the Brown v. Board court ruling and a year after the story of the Clinton 12. Then, the iconic Ann Allen Boyce will be introduced by my hermana and Teens Take Charge alumna Tiffani Torres and current press officer Sophie Mode. And now for a video. Okay, so without further ado, please welcome our panelists.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Tiffani Torres, and I'm a Teens Take Charge alum and a freshman at Georgetown University.
Hi, my name is Sophie Mode, and I'm a current Teens Take Charge organizer and senior at a Brooklyn Public High School.
Teens Take Charge was founded on the idea of student testimony. And when Sophie and I joined Teens Take Charge, we decided to create a spoken word piece together, emphasizing our totally opposite experiences in the school system, despite living just a few miles apart. Since then, we've had the opportunity to share our piece at schools, community centers, conferences, and more in New York City and beyond.
The greatest of these opportunities came a year and a half ago when we were part of a joint section at the Atlantic Education Summit comparing segregation then and segregation now with civil rights icon and personal inspiration to us, Ann Allen Boyce. Since then, we have had the immense honor of being considered activists alongside her, but also being able to call her a friend.
As you saw in the video, Joanne was a member of the Clinton 12 who took on a real leadership role. Today, we are so excited to say that Joanne is here to speak with us about her incredible life of activism and the power of youth today. Welcome, Joanne.
Thank you very much, Tiffani and Sophie. It's so great to be back with you again.
It's great to see you again, too.
So you have questions for me, I understand.
Yes, so the first question is kind of a two-part question. Can you start off by telling us a little bit about the Clinton 12 and how you got involved? And was this your first involvement with the issue, or had you been involved for a while?
So in the first part, the Clinton 12 were 12 African-American students who had just either just graduated from elementary school or had graduated a few years before that. And every morning, in order to continue our education, we would have to get on a bus and ride 20 miles to go to an all-Black high school. So when the Supreme Court's ruling came down that segregated schools were inherently, unqualified, we decided that we would like to be part of desegregating the school that was so close to us, within a 5-minute walk for most of the students. So just 12 students who were eligible to go to high school, we came together, we met with our parents, and we said, okay, let's do this. And we weren't specially chosen. We were just chosen by ourselves. We chose ourselves to start this new path on life. And the second part, no, I had not. I was only 14 years old when all of this happened. I really didn't know much about activism outside of the people that were, well-known activists like Martin Luther King or Rosa Parks or somebody like that. But I didn't know a lot about that. So I didn't really realize that that's what I would turn out to be, an activist. And I'm actually very glad that that happened. I'm glad that I made that decision to get involved and to stay involved.
Thank you so much, Joanne. We are Very much glad to. We heard a little bit about this in the video, but what kind of aftermath came after your attempts to integrate your school, and just like what was your experience dealing with that at such a young age?
Well, it was very difficult. You know, growing up in the South during those days, you were used to being called names, but not in the amount that you got called when you were walking down the hill to go to school. It was in mass. Uh, Hundreds of people would eventually come out and call us all sorts of awful things, including the N word, of course. And so it was a very tumultuous time during our young teenage years. But we decided that we were going to keep our heads up and our backs up, and we were going to continue to do this because it was well worth it. And I don't know that any of the other students would disagree with me. I think we all kind of came together and said, we will continue to do this so we will overcome all of this hatred that we hear being spewed at us. The other bad things, of course, that happened were there was a riot one night, and any African American who traveled through Clinton in a car on the highway, which was totally open to everyone, was accosted, and the cars rocked, and windows broken, and people were threatened. And I think that was probably one of the scariest parts of this whole thing.
Thank you so much for telling us about this. My question is, have you had any contact with your white classmates since then?
Yes, I would dearly love to tell the story of one woman. There's only been one. Sometimes when I go back to Clinton, every once in a while, I will have a conversation with someone who was there, but it's very brief, and they say they're sorry. But this particular woman has reached out to me, and she has sent me letters, and she has asked me to forgive her. She saw what was happening, but she did not get engaged. She just left it as it was. And I don't blame her. She was a teenager during that time, and it was very dangerous, actually, for the students who wanted to, I think, make friends with us, or at least be civil to us. I think that it was difficult for them as well. They were threatened as well. So this particular woman, her name is Anna Williams, and Anna and I have formed a relationship, a friendship, one that I believe will last forever. She is a wonderful person, and I'm so glad to have her in my life.
Thank you so much for sharing all of this with us. I know that it's just like so powerful to hear from you and unimaginable to understand, the power you guys had and the strength in doing all of that when you were at such a young age. I was just curious, do you see any parallels between the experiences that you and your classmates had and, the ways that white resistance has blocked integration in the past and in the present?
Yes, there are definitely parallels. I think maybe a little bit different from what we went through. We went through a period where segregation was the rule, was the law. And now it is not. Segregation is not the law. Desegregation is the law. And yet we still have highly segregated schools. I know this because I go out to speak to schools here in California. A lot of it has to do with finances, where you live. A lot of it has to do with parents who live in very poor neighborhoods whose children go to an all Black or an all brown or a mixed Black and brown school. Not that these schools aren't bad, it's just that it doesn't it doesn't look like desegregation. It doesn't look like integration when you visit.
So just to piggyback off of Sophie's question, how do you feel about the current state of public schools in this country and the deep segregation that still exists?
I wish that things would be different. I wish that things would have continued to improve over time. I wish that we wouldn't have to be having these conversations. And as much as I love Teens Take Charge, I wish that we didn't have to have groups like you, because it's ridiculous. Here it is, 2021, and we're still fighting for school equity. That makes absolutely no sense to me.
It makes me both totally enraged and really emotional to have, me and Tiffani and you together showing how much time has passed and still nothing has been done. Specifically about youth activism, how do you think young people are uniquely positioned to affect change, specifically around education? And how do you feel it's important personally to connect the work of historical youth activists and youth activists of the present?
Yes, I am extremely proud of the young people who have been getting out there every day and working on any problem of injustice, like schools. School segregation is ridiculous. And so I'm very happy that there have been enough young people who are strong enough to stand up against it and to speak out to the people who are in charge, like Mayor de Blasio, that I know Tiffani has spoken to several times. And I wish he would listen more, because it's very important that our schools be equitable for all students, not just Blacks and Browns, but also whites. And I think that we need to continue this. I know that I will be happy to help as much as I can. I'm on the other coast, but I'm happy to do whatever I can to speak up and speak out against desegregation, and to work alongside all the other members who are willing to do the same.
Thank you so much. I think I'm going to have to place another call pretty soon. But for young people watching today who are deeply involved in activism, what would you say to them and those on the front lines today experiencing pushback, verbal harassment, and outright violence in their fight to justice? How can they stay motivated through these times?
Stand your ground. Stand your ground. Be strong. Be courageous. Continue to speak up and speak out. We did it in 1956. Things were far worse, I think, than as far as how we would be treated. Of course, now I should say that with a little caveat that things have gotten worse over the past 4 years, unfortunately, because of the rhetoric of the past president. And that did not help the cause any at all. And I would like for the young people to stand up and continue to be brave and speak out, be inspired by doing good, because you are doing good. And I'm very proud of you. I'm very proud to be involved.
Thank you. I know that just to be associated with you a little bit is like the highest honor ever. As someone, who faced such extreme, violence and hateful rhetoric at such a young age, what do you think that adults can do to amplify and protect the work of students on the front lines for educational justice?
First of all, we've got to get adults on our side. I know that when I go out and I speak to really young children, their parents are not always on their side. And I have to encourage them to do so nicely with their parents, but to speak up against racism and educational disparities and all kinds of things that are going on right now that really are a result of the way parents or adults have not really taken a lot of interest in. And because of the time, maybe when they grew up, they didn't learn. So we have to turn the adults around. We have to change their minds. And we have to change a lot of minds. We have to get into people's hearts. It's very important.
Thank you so much. For our last question today, before we move on to Q&A from the audience, do you have any advice for the youth activists continuing this fight today?
As I said earlier, just believe in yourself, be inspired in what it is that you're doing. Know that what you're doing is an absolutely incredible thing. Know that there are some of us adults out here who do support you. And I want to be, and I will continue to be as long as I can, involved with the Teen Take Charge group and any other groups who are doing the same thing. I think there are a few more there in New York. So I don't want you to give up. That's the one thing. I don't want you to give up, ever. We didn't give up.
Thank you. I know, I sometimes I feel like I don't have the words to say. It's just so inspiring and powerful always to hear from you. We have a question for you from a teacher. Lori asked, I teach the Little Rock 9 and my students always want to know if the students felt that they were activists. I tell them that there were thousands of other similar students whose names never became well known, and I'm happy to learn yours today. Did you have a sense of the historical importance of what you were doing? Were the students talked about as activists, and did you think of yourself this way?
No, that was not on our minds. In fact, we didn't even know the importance of what we were doing. We knew that we were helping to break down an old law to get it off the books and get us all in school together. But we didn't know the impact that it would have. So no, I didn't call myself an activist then. And I only did that, I would say, maybe 10 years later when I picked up the baton and said, I got to keep going with this. And I wanted everyone to know about the Clinton 12 because, as the teacher mentioned, lots of people have never even heard of us. And that always made me feel sad, actually.
I know it makes me so sad too. It's been so, I feel like both so educational to get to learn from you and hear from you always, and of course, like the biggest inspiration I've ever had. And I know for me, it can be really, disheartening how little change is made, but seeing you and how, you still like stick through it after, dealing with what you dealt with is just the ultimate inspiration. That was our last question for today. Thank you so much for joining us. There's a lot of applause for you in the chat, which I wholeheartedly support. And Tiffani, you want to add anything?
Yes, thank you so much. I just want to say I'm really glad that I met you 2 years ago. Wait, was it 2 years?
Yeah.
That's crazy. And I met you 2 years ago, and you're literally one of my favorite people and the most inspirational person I know. So thank you for being that way.
Thank you both for inviting me to be a part of this. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you so much for being with us today.
I hope we can see you again in person soon.
Yes, that would be lovely.
Thank you so much to Jo Ann Allen Boyce for your continued courage and for laying the foundation on which we stand as the fight for educational justice continues. We are because of you, and I am so thankful. I think I speak for everyone when I say I wish there was a way to reach out of our screens and give you a big old hug. So much
I
love for
love that.
We are going to take a short break for you to stretch and grab some breakfast, lunch, or snack, depending on where you are. But first, we want to make sure that you know what's happening during lunch. We have 10 amazing lunch talks for you to choose from. Lunch talks will take place in a separate Zoom room, so make sure to register for the session you want to attend. You can find the registration links on pages 3 and 4 of your program. We have also dropped a link in the chat for your convenience. If you hear about great resources or ideas during your lunch talk, which we know you will, please share them on this resource page. We're creating a fun resource for all of you, and we want to build it collaboratively. If you have any difficulty getting into your lunch talk, use the Q&A box. After the lunch talks, please come back to the same webinar link. Thank you.